You're a failure as a Christian wife. No wonder your husband sought comfort elsewhere. Imagine standing in the middle of a crowded farmer's market, surrounded by the smell of fresh peaches and artisanal bread, while 6 elderly women you once shared pews with, trap your crying 15-year-old daughter in a corner. They weren't there for the organic eggs. They were there for blood. They called my daughter unchristian for not hugging the grandparents who tried to sue for her custody. They called her heartless for not raising her father's affair babies. But their biggest mistake wasn't harassing a child in public. Their biggest mistake was forgetting that while they spent their Sundays praying for my soul, I spent my Mondays collecting every single receipt, every deleted text, and every photograph of the godly son they raised. That they wanted a Christian spectacle? Fine. I decided to give them a Sunday service they would never, ever forget. I didn't just break their reputation, I burned the entire altar down. Last year, my life didn't just change, it imploded. My ex-husband died in a high-speed car accident. In the movies, this is where the grieving widow and the loving in-laws cling to each other for support. But in my reality, the police didn't just bring news of a crash, they brought news of a passenger, a woman who also died in that car. And the investigation didn't stop there. It led to a small apartment across town where 2 little boys, toddlers, were waiting for a mother and father who would never come home. My husband hadn't just cheated. He had a whole second life, a second family funded by my paycheck. Because I was the breadwinner while he played the successful consultant. My daughters, 17 and 15, were the ones who found the hidden burner phone first. Imagine being a teenager and finding out your father's late nights at the office were actually bedtime stories for your secret half-brothers. The trauma was instant. The grief was replaced by a cold, hard resentment. But my ex-in-laws? They didn't see a cheating son. They saw a legacy they needed to protect. Instead of apologizing for their son's betrayal, they demanded my daughters do their duty. They wanted my girls to accept these babies as brothers. More than that, they tried to sue me for custody of my own daughters, claiming I was unstable because I filed for divorce the moment I found out. So they even had the audacity to ask if they could move into my house to save money, since they inherited my ex's bank accounts but apparently needed more. I said no to everything, and that's when the holy war began. Fast forward to this week. It was my youngest daughter's birthday. To give her a bit of joy, I gave her a budget and let her explore our local weekend market. I thought she was safe. I thought the worst thing that could happen was she'd buy too much chocolate. I was wrong. When I found her, she was trembling. These 6 women, the golden girls of the First Baptist Church, had her cornered against a vegetable stall. They were berating her. "Your grandmother is a saint," one hissed. "How can you leave those poor boys orphaned? You're acting just like your mother." The moment I stepped in, the vitriol turned to me. They didn't care about the produce. They wanted to remind me of my place. They told me I was the reason my husband died, that if I had been a better wife, he wouldn't have been on that road that night. I didn't scream back at the market. Not much. I just got my girls in the car, but as I drove away watching them watch us like vultures, I felt a switch flip. No more playing nice. No more taking the high road. The high road was empty and cold. I wanted the low road. I wanted the road that led straight to the truth. That night, I called a friend who was still in that church's circle. He told me the truth my mother-in-law had been spreading. It was a masterpiece of fiction. In her version, she was the victim. She claimed I was a cold, infertile woman who forced my husband to find a surrogate, the affair partner, to give him sons. Then, when the surrogate died, I rejected the boys out of spite and abandoned the grieving grandparents to homelessness. The church members, the extremist ones, ate it up. They saw me as the villain of a Hallmark movie, but here's what my mother-in-law forgot. I was mid-divorce when he died. My lawyer had everything. Every photo of him and his Jezebel, as they would call her, making out in my living room. Every text from my mother-in-law saying, "Keep it quiet, son. She doesn't need to know as long as the money keeps coming." And the worst one? A text sent to my 15-year-old daughter just 2 days after her father's funeral. My mother-in-law wrote, You're a bastard for breaking your father's heart by telling your mother about his friend. His blood is on your hands. She called my legitimate daughters bastards to protect her son's image. That was it. That was the spark that lit the fuse. The next day, I didn't go to work. I went to a high-end print shop. I didn't want a messy Facebook rant. I wanted something tactile, something they couldn't delete. I paid for premium, heavyweight cardstock. I wanted the colors of those affair photos to pop. I wanted the text messages to be crystal clear. I spent hours assembling what I called the truth binders. I designed the covers to look exactly like the church's hymn supplements. Grace and Truth, the cover read in elegant gold script. But inside? Page 1, a photo of my ex-husband and his mistress on my sofa. Underneath I printed, a story of surrogacy or a story of betrayal. Page 2, bank statements showing he was sending my hard-earned money to her while my in-laws watched. Page 3, the texts from the in-laws encouraging the cheating. Page 4, the big one, the printed screenshot of the text calling my daughters bastards. I made 50 of them. Sunday morning, 20 minutes before service. The welcome desk is always unmanned during the early bird prayer. I walked in, dressed in my Sunday best, and quietly replaced the songbooks in the back rows with my Grace and Truth binders. I didn't stay for the sermon. I didn't need to. The explosion was inevitable. By 1 p.m., my phone was melting. The Facebook group for the church, which had been a haven for my mother-in-law's lies, turned into a battlefield. People were posting photos of my binders, the golden girls who harassed my daughter. They were suddenly very, very quiet. The church had a strict policy against cheating. It was their one saving grace. And seeing their golden son in HD draped over another woman was too much for even the most devout members to ignore. The backlash was swift. My mother-in-law tried to claim the photos were AI-generated, but you can't AI-generate 20 years of specific family drama and bank records. The pastor had to issue a statement. My ex-in-laws were asked to seek reflection elsewhere, which is church speak for get out and don't come back. They lost their house, not because of me, but because they had been living off the life insurance and the bank accounts they inherited, and without the church's social support and the charity they were grifting, they couldn't sustain their lifestyle. A week later, I got 2 letters in the mail. Apologies. From 2 of the women at the market. They claimed they were misled. I didn't forgive them, but I kept the letters for the court case. My mother-in-law made one last post, a long, rambling rant about how no one cares for the elderly and how her great son would have protected her. I just smiled. Her great son was the one who left her with this mess. My daughters? They're still in therapy. But for the first time in a year, they walked into school with their heads held high. They aren't the girls whose dad died in a scandal. They are the girls whose mom fought back. To anyone out there dealing with righteous bullies, remember, the truth doesn't just set you free. If you package it correctly, it can burn down the house of lies they built around you. I'm done being a good Christian wife. I'm just a mother, and a mother who protects her cubs is much, much scarier than any church gossip.